right, Tiff, how are you feeling this morning?
I'm feeling great. I'm so happy. I feel so loved. I feel so validated. Last night was everything I needed it to be.
At the final five, you did your best to try and flip the vote to Aubrey. Why do you think that was unsuccessful? Was there anything you could have done?
I don't think so. I think what it boiled down to is maybe Jonathan and Joe could have been swayed, but I don't think that they were really making decisions on their own at that point. They were kind of consulting each other, consulting Rizzo. And Rizzo was like standing on business. He was like, absolutely not. You guys cannot flip. Tiffany cannot stay. And, combined with the fact that they were already a little shook at the idea of losing to me again, I just don't think that there was anything I could have done.
Let's say you had made it to the final four. How do you think you would have done in the Samotion challenge? How's
I
your
think
hand-eye coordination?
I'm an artist. My hand-eye coordination is great. I think I would have done really good. I have pretty good hand-eye coordination. So I think if I could have made it past Final Five and into that Final Four challenge, I have a good shot at sitting in Final Three. A really good
Okay.
shot.
Another hypothetical, had you sat in the final three with Aubrey, how do you think that would have went?
I would have won. I know
Yeah.
hands down I would have won. When I got to
Okay.
Ponderosa, the jury told me I would have won.
Mhm.
They're like, Tiffany, we wanted you to win this game. Why are you here? We wanted anybody here but you. Sorry. It
So that must be a bittersweet feeling, right?
was bittersweet because obviously you want to win, but I guess the next best thing to winning is knowing that you would have won. So,
Cirie had told me that she thinks you would have gone to the final three with her, and I want to know from you whether you would have or not.
yes, yes, I would have. I know how crazy that sounds. Yes.
A little bit,
Yes,
a little
I
crazy,
would.
a little
I
crazy.
know, no, I know it sounds crazy. And believe it or not, people have been asking me this question ever since I left the game. And it's a multitude of things, right? As somebody who is considered a pretty big threat in the game, getting dogpiled on doesn't feel good. I have four people team up on me in a challenge. That feels gross. It feels disgusting. Just because I'm a threat and I make people scared, I don't like I don't like the ganging up stuff. Besides that, nobody puts fear in my heart, not even Cirie. And Cirie's a friend. She is so deserving. And I feel like this isn't just a regular season of Survivor. This is Survivor 50. People deserve people to be sitting in the end that not only deserve to be there, but that encapsulate the spirit of what Survivor is on a landmark season.
Mm.
Jeff said it himself. Cirie is the spirit of Survivor. How iconic would that have been to allow this woman that has inspired this game for so many years to finally sit in that final three where she deserves to be sitting and get her flowers? I would have loved to be a part of that,
Even if it costs you $2 million.
even if it cost me $2 million.
Now, I want to talk about the floating doghouse water challenge, which you won for like a minute and then was robbed of the win, stripped of the win. Tell me about the high of the win and the low of the realness there.
Oh, it sucked. It freaking sucked, man. One more win and I could have tied the record. However, things move so fast out there. There's so many things going on. It's loud. And I feel like watching it back, it looks like, I kept my feet on the platform for like a super long amount of time. But I
Mhm.
promise you, it was seconds. It was seconds between when Jeff said his final like number on the countdown and people just started falling off. So I'm like, by the time I got my foot up, it was too late. Obviously, they made the right call. I know they would never like, there's people out there. That's why I didn't question it. There's
Mhm.
like 40 people out there specifically to make sure that the challenges are fair and called right. I think where the discrepancy was that there's a lot of like movement on the platform because like Jeff even missed it. That's how quick it went. Jeff is counting down. We're trying to get our things together. People lift their feet up and then they're falling off because the thing is, because it's a live transition and because Jeff is counting down, some people did have their foot up before me, but that does not mean that they necessarily had their foot up after Jeff was done counting. Like, for example, Jeff is like five, four. Half of the people have their feet up at four, three, two.
Hmm.
Lifting it. I was waiting until the very last second to lift my foot up. But it just so happens that, I cut it a little too close and half of the people fell off before he was even done counting. So I'm
Yeah.
like, what are you going to do, right? It's semantics, it's technicalities. But at the end of the day, if they say I didn't get my foot up on time, then I didn't get my foot up on time. It
Okay.
sucked.
Yeah.
But I will argue that while I didn't get the necklace, I still think it worked out in my favor because I got to still send two of my targets home anyway. So I
Yeah.
still got what I wanted.
Now, tell me a little bit about the stuff that happened at Final Tribal Council that we did not see in the episode. Any fiery back and forth?
Okay, so I will give you a little context. There was a lot of like fiery stuff going on. And, I'm a person that wears my emotions on my sleeve. I like to tell people how I feel. But in that moment, I was really extra fiery. And I feel like I had done a great job with my emotional regulation throughout the game. And I knew I was going home. So that's really not what caused the fire to really boil over. It actually happened in a conversation that you guys didn't get to see earlier on. And just like because the tribal is so long, things get cut out. The same question I posed at tribal when I asked, why are you guys okay with losing to each other and not me? Me and Joe have the same amount of immunity wins. And I had a conversation with Jonathan on the hammock when I was making my pitch to him. And I asked him the same question. And he said, well, Tiffany, it's because you're a girl. And the record for girls is four, and the record for guys is eight. And now, do I think that Jonathan meant to be malicious in this moment? No, I don't, because Jonathan's not a malicious guy. But at the same time, everything that I had put, all the hard work that I had put into the game up until that point, being reduced to the number of record wins for a girl and the number of record wins for a guy, and something so stupid and like trivial, I just, I lost it. And I'm just like, as a woman who is already coming out here with a target painted on my back because of how I look, I'm strong. I'm an athlete. I got muscles. Like, nobody's going to look at me and think that I'm an easy person to beat, even before you compete against me. That was something that I was fighting earlier on in the merge because when I caught stray votes after the D vote, a lot of people were like, well, Tiffany's strong too. And I was making the argument, I think it was to Joe. I'm like, I haven't even won the individual immunity necklace yet. Why are people saying, oh, you're strong, you're gonna beat us? I'm like, there are people here that have actually won individual immunity. It's the first vote in the merge. Y'all have never even seen me wear the necklace. He's like, but look at you, you're a beast. So like I have been battling that since the beginning. And then for it to boil down to something as stupid as that, I'm like, I gotta get this off my chest because that's just asinine.
I want to ask you, you were sitting on stage at the live finale when Jeff spoiled that Rizzo was the 11th juror.
Anyway, Rizzo, you become the final member of our jury. Take a spot over here.
The crowd was freaking out. I was freaking out. What
I
was
was
it like?
freaking out.
What was it like for you up there on stage?
It was very like it was kind of an outer body experience, right? Because as somebody who also works in production, I'm kind of seeing this unfold in slow motion in my head, and I'm like, oh, I don't want to get up. I don't want to say anything. Like, that's not my place. Maybe something else is happening here that I don't know about. Like, and it was the line of questioning that got my heart beating a little fast. I'm like, what is Jeff doing? And then Rizzo was doing really good. He was going with the punches. Rizzo still wasn't spoiling anything. And then when Jeff did, I think there's a shot of me. I'm just like,
They didn't show the fire.
Fire hasn't happened yet.
Huh?
The fire hasn't happened yet.
I didn't know what to think. But then, I've sat on it, and it's just that's the game. Not the game, but what I mean is that like if there's anybody ever questioning whether or not this is really live, whether or not Survivor's real, or any other stuff, like it's live TV, mistakes happen, and just like how we go out there and we are vulnerable and we make mistakes and we make a fool out of ourselves on live TV, Jeff is also willing to get in the trenches and nobody's perfect, but I commend him for how he like was able to kind of pick it up like a true professional and keep rolling with the punches. But it was absolutely insane, especially coming from Jeff, because Jeff never makes mistakes. So I'm like, obviously it's a bigger picture. Like it's not just Jeff. There's a crew and there's teleprompters and there's like a whole crew of people. I think it was just like the perfect storm of things going wrong for us to get to that point. And you know, Survivor 50, expect the unexpected.
Looking back at your entire game, is there anything either we didn't see that you want people to know or any context that you want to add to anything? I want to give you the floor to say your piece.
I think it was just for me important to showcase for all the women out there that have been inspired by my journey. You know, any woman that has ever put fear into a man's heart and that ultimately ended up her being knocked down or being knocked down a peg. I just, I hope my journey inspires somebody to get back up. Girl, there's all like when you're a strong person, you're a strong woman, especially if you appear physically strong, there are always going to be people that are intimidated by you. There are always going to be people that, try to knock you down because they're just scared of losing to you. But I hope that my fight inspires somebody to keep on going because even though I didn't win the 2 million, I still feel like it was worth it. I'm filled with pride. And the fact that people are also able to see the effort that I put in and recognize that as well, it makes everything feel worth it for me, win or loss.